Hello everyone, this video will cover Module 5. Module 5 is the middle module for our argument essay. So in the previous module, you started learning about argumentation and you worked on a pre-writing journal so that you could plan out your argument essay. In this module, you'll be doing a couple of other things related to argument. You'll be finding some sources as well as continuing some practice with documentation. You should also be drafting your essay in this module. Next module is when you will turn in the final draft. So this essay might take you a little bit longer to write than the first one, and so that's why we have 3 modules for it, but also expecting you to spread out your time working on it a little bit more. So let me show you what we'll be working on. You can see you just have the 2 assignments here that you'll be actually turning in for a grade. However, I do have this information about drafting your argument essay so that you can continue working once you have some feedback on the pre-writing journal. Then you can start actually writing out the essay itself. So we've got some argument readings that go along with this unit, and then I also have the documentation readings as well. These are the same ones that you would have read for the quiz in the previous module, so they're just there as a reminder to give you a little bit of review. Sometimes it helps to go through them more than once. It's a little bit confusing for some students, especially if you've never used it before. So let's talk about the discussion board first. The discussion board is about sources, finding sources about the purpose of college and the value of college education. Your task will be to find 3 sources about higher education. They might be related to your essay, preferably finding some sources that are related to the topic that you've chosen, but we can also look at sources that are a little bit broader in nature, things about the value of education or not, depending on what your topic is for your essay, why college education is not for everyone, that kind of thing. So anything related to what you're doing in your own essay is fine. The purpose of this is to give yourself some variety in the sources that you might choose to use in your essay, as well as providing ideas for your peers that they can look at. You might find something that would help someone else. So in this case, you can definitely just use sources that are about higher education, even if you don't think that they would actually help you in your essay. So first thing you're going to do is find those 3 sources. For each source, you want to create a new thread. It is a good idea to find those sources and make your thread immediately, and then go back in and edit that thread to add the content to that post. That way, you find a website and you decide you're going to use it, but it may be a couple of days before you actually have time to write about it, and that's fine. So that way you've saved your source and nobody else can use that. An example down here at the bottom of what it's going to look like, you'll have your link, you'll have 10 points that you learned from it, and then you'll have an explanation of your views. So you'll do that 3 times, 1 for each of the sources that you found, and then you're going to respond to 3 classmates by either listing some additional points or coming up with some ways to play devil's advocate, making some counter arguments, because since we are dealing with argumentative topics, sometimes it can be a little bit harder to see opposing viewpoints, especially if an author doesn't include them in his or her original. So this is an opportunity to kind of look at what other people can think about and what other viewpoints are out there. So you'll do that. You'll do 3 sources and then 3 responses. So that's the discussion board. And the other thing that you'll be doing is this MLA documentation assignment. There's an example here. I've just done 1 source with a quote and a paraphrase, or 2 sources, 1 with a quote and 1 with a paraphrase, so you can kind of see what it looks like. You're going to do 5. Basically, you're going to find 5 sources. You don't need to find 5 additional sources. You can just use the 3 that you use for the discussion board and then find 2 more. So by the time you sit down to write your essay in the next unit, you'll have 5 good sources to start working with. So again, you should be looking for sources that are related to your topic. You can use articles out of the book if you want to. That's perfectly fine for this type of assignment. You will have to end up using one of those in your essay anyway, and so sometimes students use a book article as at least one of their sources for this assignment. So this is what you'll be doing. You'll be writing out the works cited entry and then writing one sentence for each source. So it's 5 sources, 5 sentences. Of those 5 sentences, at least 2 need to be direct quotations and 2 need to be paraphrases. So you can mix and match, I guess the 5th sentence can be either a quote or a paraphrase, depending on which one you're more comfortable doing. But the point is that I'm looking for whether or not you can cite things correctly. So the quotation is going to look like this. Direct quotes have quotation marks around them, and you have to use this, what's called a signal phrase, usually an according to or using the author's name and a verb, and that author's name will always link back to the very first part of the works cited entry. Same thing goes here. We have a paraphrase. A paraphrase is something written in your own words, so it's not directly from the source, but it is you reading the source, understanding what they're saying, and then writing it in your own words. And then the citation is called an in-text citation, always matches the first part of the works cited entry. So if you don't have an author's name, you will always use the first part of the works cited entry. And so in this case, we have the value, which is the first part of that title. So that's what we're going to use for our citation. So you're going to prove to me that you know how to do this. You've already taken a quiz over documentation, and so now you're going to just present to me what you know about documentation by using this doing this assignment. It's not hard. Don't make it harder for yourself by finding new sources. Just use those same sources that you've been working with and then write them out. You can find quotations that you might want to use in your essay, so you sort of build up some things that you can look back at when you start writing the essay itself. So those are the 2 assignments you'll be working on, and then of course you'll get some feedback, especially on the documentation assignment, if you're doing something really wrong before you actually submit the argument essay. Then I want you to, once you have those 2 things done, start drafting the argument essay. You do have a whole week to finish the final draft of the argument essay, but if you are a little bit slower at writing, you will definitely want longer than that. The essay itself is not terribly long, but it may take you a little bit longer because we're starting to use sources. So I want you to be thinking about spending more than a week on the argument essay, making sure that you give yourself enough time to do a good proofreading and all of that. So I've got a link back to the criteria so that you remember what you're doing, and then some tips for making your argument essay a full draft. And looking back at that pre-writing journal to turn your initial ideas into a full draft of an essay. So that's what we're working on in this module. We are just moving forward with the argument essay, getting you to the place where you can start actually creating a final draft. That will be due in the next module. So hopefully you're doing well. If you have any questions, feel free to send me